Today I'm delighted to speak to Michele Rigolizzo from the Harvard Business School. Michele, you've been looking at how organizational learning has changed over the last 5 or 10 years. What's your key finding at this point?
So at this point, what we're really looking at is the individual within the organization and the individual learning process. And the key finding is probably twofold. One is that expertise development is now a continual process. It no longer sort of happens once and then you can rely on that for the rest of your career. The other is that if you're thinking about individual learning in organizations, it's really not one thing, but it's a series of distinct behaviors. And so if you want to motivate learning, you don't really ask, well, how do I motivate learning? You ask, how do I motivate a given behavior and when is that most appropriate?
What are some of the different types of learning that you mentioned? What are those?
Yeah, so the different types of learning behaviors. So I'll take a step back and say what really we're doing is we're defining learning and differentiating it from short-term performance. And that's a really key piece because it's very hard to differentiate short-term learning and performance. So I learned something today, I can do it tonight, but if you ask me in a week, I have no idea. So really, learning is the ability to do something on demand and continually do it well. And so what we're looking at is what are the behaviors that make that more likely. And so some of these learning behaviors are things like taking on a challenge or pushing yourself beyond your current capacity. Another one is to actually build knowledge, to go out and find out what's already known about this, but go beyond that and say, well, what else in the world relates to this? And the idea is that the more you build context about it, the more you're likely to remember it over time. Another one would be persisting after failure. Learning is very much a trial and error process. And so the idea is not just that you try and you fail, but that you try again after that and you keep trying until you succeed. And the final one would be that after this short sort of trial and error process, you failed, you succeeded, is to really reflect back and say, well, why did I fail and why did I succeed? And once you're really able to answer that question and those underlying principles, then you've sort of developed an expertise in that area.